Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to the best small cities in the United States. Now this should be an interesting one because, when like me or, someone who isn't an American thinks of cities in America, we think of New York City, we think of Chicago, we think of maybe Los Angeles. So we think of the big, flashy, huge cities with big populations, but there are going to be some smaller cities in the US that are equally appealing for different reasons. Maybe they're really quaint, maybe they're really scenic, maybe there's a lot of cool things to do there. So this video by Geography King, I'm hoping it's going to show, the places that don't really get the attention that the big names do. So yeah, this should be an interesting one. So let's do it.
Howdy, it's Kyle counting down the top 10 small cities in the US, and there really is no official definition for what makes a small city versus a medium-sized city. Previously, I posted a video ranking the top medium-sized cities in the US, and for that video, I used statistical natural breaks to rank the metro area. So that was about 600,000 people to about 1.1 million for the medium-sized cities. So for this one, to rank the small cities, I'm using a population of about 200,000 to about 550,000 or so.
Seems reasonable.
For a lot of people, including myself, this is the perfect size range of city. So these places are just large enough to have a number of pretty good restaurants and nightlife and pretty good entertainment options, but they're not so large where you're overrun with traffic and crowds and just crazy crime kind of stuff. So if you want city kind of stuff but don't want to be overwhelmed by huge cities, and this might be the perfect size range for you too. So let's get started ranking the top 10 small cities in the US.
Yeah, to be honest, it does sound appealing. I think at the stage that I am now in life, I still probably prefer the big cities just because there's more stuff to do. But when I get a bit older, I do think, small city life will be more appealing.
At number 10 is Roanoke, Virginia. This sits in the southwestern portion of the state in a valley surrounded by the Appalachians, so it's a very pretty setting. The city has about 100,000 people, and the city
small.
and county of Roanoke combined have about 200,000 people, so it's the smallest city on this list. It's got a nice downtown that's good for walking around, and because the city really isn't that big, you can see the Appalachians from pretty much anywhere in the city. Right downtown is a pretty cool outdoor market simply called the City Market.
Wow.
It's a combination of both a farmer's market and an artisan's market.
What kind of clothes? Is she Amish, I think?
So it's pretty cool. And there's also a really good bluegrass music scene. So if you're into live bluegrass, this is a great place for it. And being basically right in the Appalachians, there's a lot of great outdoor activities right nearby. It's one of the top mountain biking cities in the entire country. And there are also many city and state parks nearby, including the huge Carvin's Cove Nature Reserve, which is one of the largest municipal parks in the entire country.
Wow.
So a combination of a nice downtown, good city.
Tons of trees and grass and stuff. I bet the oxygen here is probably a decent quality.
For walking, beautiful scenery, and a lot of great outdoor activities, Roanoke is a pretty nice place and why it's on this list. At number 9 is Corpus Christi, Texas, which sits right along the coast in the subtropical southern portion of the state. It has a population of about 330,000 people.
That's a nice
There are
beach.
about 410,000 or so in the metro area.
Nice skyline.
It's both a blue-collar town and a tourist town with a couple of major oil refineries located in the city, and it's also the 5th largest port in the entire U.S., and it's mainly oil and agricultural products that are going out of the port. There's a decent beach right downtown called McGee Beach, which is an okay beach, but it is nice to have one right in the immediate downtown. Adjacent to McGee Beach is a seawall promenade right along the bay, and it's got a paved walking and biking path with lots of restaurants as well. However, the best beaches there are just outside of town, with Mustang Island State Park being just outside the city limits, and a lot of great beach right there. There's a good paddling trail and over 20 miles of water trails right there.
Anyone who lives in Texas that's watching this, have property prices gone up a lot in Texas recently? Because I've heard there's been a massive influx of people from other states like California, Arizona into Texas. So is property going up or is it still really affordable?
There. So I really like Corpus Christi and the area, and I think the beaches surrounding the city are the best ones in the state. At number 8 is Lincoln, Nebraska, which is the state capital. It's located in the southeastern portion of the state, and there are about 300,000 people or so in the Lincoln metro area. The immediate downtown is pretty well set up for walking around and has one of the most unique state capitol buildings in the country. The Haymarket Entertainment District is right downtown, and that's where you have a lot of the bars and restaurants, and a lot of them are student-oriented for the University of Nebraska, but there are some pretty cool shops and restaurants in that area. And there are a lot of state parks and state recreation areas just outside of the city. And most of them have a...
This looks like a nice place just to chill out and read a book, man.
A lake that's really good for flat water activities, including fishing. So this isn't the prettiest area in the country, but there are some pretty good outdoor activities, and the city itself is pretty nice. So overall, Lincoln ranks pretty high in this category. At number 7 is Manchester, New Hampshire.
Manchester.
There's about 115,000 people or so.
It's crazy how many places in America have the same name as places here in the UK. There's so many of them.
So in the city, and Hillsborough County, in which it lies, has about 415,000 people. It's only about 50 miles to Boston, so a lot of the folks that live there commute to Boston. Manchester and New Hampshire in general are both known for being great for small businesses, and there are a lot of really small businesses in town, but there are very few large companies. But the coolest place in town is called Decca Engineering. It was started by Dean Kamen, which is the guy that invented the Segway, and he has over 1,000 patents for other things he's invented.
Wow.
It's basically an engineering firm where people just come up with inventions and other innovative solutions. So it'd be pretty cool to work there and have somebody ask, what do you do for a living? I invent stuff. It doesn't have a lot of great outdoor
I'm a genius.
activities, but you do have a pretty good sized lake there. I think it's called Massabesic Lake, and pretty good for paddling and fishing. And there's also an area called Livingston Park with a small lake as well. So overall, Manchester isn't very exciting or super fun, but it is really nice and a lot of great companies there, and New Hampshire is the lowest tax burden state in the country. At number 6 is Lexington, Kentucky, which is in the eastern portion of the state, about an hour south of the Cincinnati suburbs. It has a population of about...
It's a nice looking building, but it completely doesn't fit with the rest of the architecture of the area. Apart from maybe this one here, but this one really just sticks out.
330,000 people, and the metro area has about 480,000. So at the rate that Lexington is growing, in about 10 years, it won't be a small city, it'll be a medium-sized city. It's home to the University of Kentucky, but there are also many major private companies headquartered in the city as well. It's not the best downtown for walking around. It's pretty spread out, but there are some really cool outdoor activities that are pretty near the city. The Kentucky State Botanical Gardens are located there, as well as the Kentucky Horse Park, which has a museum, gallery, and farm exhibits all dedicated to horses. And for me personally, the best thing about Lexington is all the bourbon distilleries around there. So Kentucky-style bourbon is my favorite type of liquor, and so a lot of great distilleries right around there. Kentucky overall is a pretty rough state, and once you get east of Lexington, it's one of the poorest parts of the entire country.
Kentucky is quite a rough state. I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought, Kentucky, this is going to sound so stupid, but because of the link with Kentucky Fried Chicken, I thought maybe they'd have, quite a bit of income from that. That's so dumb, isn't it?
But Lexington is a bright spot for the state and a great place to live. At number 5 is Reno, Nevada, which is located in the northwestern portion of the state, pretty close to the California border and Lake Tahoe. There are about 260,000 people in the city and about 475,000 in Washoe County, where it's located. Reno used to be pretty rough around the edges, but it's improved a lot in the past 10-20 years or so. And certainly with it being Nevada, tourism is a huge part of the economy.
The biggest little city
unlike Las Vegas, there's a lot more than just gambling tourism. But a big boost to the economy.
There's snowboarding here. I thought Nevada was hot. I thought it was like a desert.
In Reno has been the new Tesla Gigafactory, which is where they make a lot of the batteries for Teslas, and it's a joint venture with Panasonic Electronics. I like the downtown. It's improved a lot. Again, it used to be pretty rough around the edges, but it's a lot nicer now. There's a really cool Riverwalk district. There's an area of Midtown which has some pretty cool funky boutique shops. But if you're into the outdoors, it doesn't get much better than Reno. There's a lot of great spots right nearby. There are literally hundreds of miles of hiking and biking trails that are less than a half an hour from the city center. So if you're into hiking, mountain biking, paddling, or rock climbing,
sick shot.
It's one of the top spots in the entire country. And if you're into off-road biking and ATV trails, there are a ton of those too. But it is growing pretty fast, and just like Lexington, in about 10 years, Reno won't be a small city. It's going to be a medium-sized city, even though it is the biggest little city in the world. At number 4 is Madison, Wisconsin, which is the state capital and the home to the University of Wisconsin.
Is it Wisconsin or Wisconsin? I thought it was Wisconsin.
Because it is a state capital and a major college town, it's one of the most highly educated cities in the entire country. Some of the biggest private companies in the city are involved in biotechnology, molecular diagnostics, genome sequencing, and scientific instrument making. So if you're a nerd, Madison's a great place.
I love how matter of fact Kyle just said, so if you're a nerd, get yourself down to Madison.
To be. State Street right downtown is a pedestrian-only street, and it's a great spot for nightlife. It's the home to the National Mustard Museum. That's right, a mustard museum. And I love mustard, so this place must be fabulous. But it's also great for outdoor activities. There are over 200 miles of hiking and biking trails in the county itself, and there are several nearby state parks. So there isn't much terrain in terms of hills and mountains, but there are a lot of great water spots, a lot of great spots for paddling and fishing. So overall, Madison is a great spot. The only real negative are those horrible winters, but if you can get around that, it's one of the best places in the entire country. At number 3 is Eugene, Oregon, which sits in the Willamette Valley in the west central portion of the state.
I've noticed a lot of these cities sit in valleys. I'm guessing this is because, the surrounding area will be amazing for, like he's mentioned, hiking, stuff like that. So you've got city life, but you've also got nature as well.
There are approximately 175,000 people in the city and about 400,000 people in the metro area. There's a really good farmer's market right downtown, a lot of great boutique shops, and a pretty cool nightlife scene there as well. It's also known as the running capital of the world, and its nickname is Tracktown, USA. So you combine the fact that it's the top city for running in the entire country. It's right next to the Cascade Mountain Range, which has a lot of great hiking and biking, and it's no surprise that Eugene is one of the fittest and healthiest cities in the entire country.
Nice.
And I'm not really using proximity to other places to put cities on this list, but it is worth mentioning. It's only 1 hour to the beach. So you're right up against the beautiful Cascades. You're only an hour away from the beautiful Oregon coast. So overall, Eugene is an outdoor lover's paradise and one of the top cities in the entire country. At number 2 is Asheville, North Carolina, which is located...
North Carolina. My name's Kabir and I'm from North Carolina. How was that convincing? Was it good? Was it terrible?
In the western portion of the state, in the shadow of the Great Smoky Mountains. There are about 100,000 people in the city and about 260,000 people or so in Buncombe County, where it's located. I would say it's probably the art capital of the Southeast. A lot of great galleries, a lot of great spots for artisans to show their wares. There's a part of town called the River Arts District, which used to be a bunch of old warehouses, and now it's hundreds of artist studios. But it's also one of the top music cities in the entire Southeast as well. Wherever you go, there's always live music there. There's a lot of great venues for it, as well as street performers. It has a really great downtown. It's great for walking around.
I like the vibe of this place. This place honestly looks like somewhere like this place and the place in Oregon that was, I think it was just before this, are my favorite so far. They seem to have like a nice energy about them based on what I've seen and heard.
The local shops and boutiques, cool record shops and bookstores, and because the downtown is so hilly, it's great for staying in shape, which you might need because you might put on the pounds from the microbrewery district. So there's a part of town where there's just a bunch of microbreweries.
Nice.
But once you leave the city, you're in the beautiful Great Smoky Mountains, and the Blue Ridge Parkway goes pretty much right through the city. So overall, it's just a pretty fun and funky place, and my wife and I really love Asheville, and we're looking at moving there someday. And the top small city in the U.S. is Savannah, Georgia. This is a coastal city that sits right along.
These buildings look very London-esque, like very London-esque.
On the South Carolina border. has a population of about 150,000 people, and the metro area has about 350,000 people. It's very popular with tourists, and Savannah seems to always end up near the top of many lists, including this one. It has a very well-preserved historic district with many homes and buildings from the colonial era, and there's also a Victorian district, which for Savannah is pretty recent. Downtown is well suited for walking around. River Street, right along the river, is pedestrian only. There's some pretty cool shops and restaurants there, and there are all kinds of little mini parks and
This is an awesome, just this, picture right here. It would be, imagine living in this house and being able to just see all of this.
plazas you can walk around as well. There are a lot of really good local, low country, southern type restaurants, just really good local cuisine, and of course some great seafood as well.
Oh yeah.
And it's often been referred to as America's friendliest city. It doesn't sit right along the beach, but just a few miles from town is Tybee Island, which is the main beach for the area. And this is a great beach. It's just a huge, wide swath of sand and just great for walking up and down. And there's a town adjacent to it as well with some pretty good restaurants and shops. With the terrain being so flat, there's of course not going to be any crazy hiking or mountain biking, but there is a pretty cool spot called the Moon River, which is a salt marsh, and there are some walking trails through a wooded area. So the city is heavily dependent on tourism, but Savannah is the fourth largest port in the country for container traffic.
That's a lot of shipping containers, man.
And it's also home to Fort Stewart, which is a very important army installation. But if you want to move there, it may be now or never, because right now housing in Savannah is reasonably affordable, but I can see it going the same way as Charleston, South Carolina, where it's just become overly gentrified and the housing has become so expensive that the average American can't afford to buy a home there. But still, Savannah is a great place, and there's a reason why it's so popular with tourists and why it ends up ranked so high on so many lists, and why I consider it the top small city in the country. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please
awesome video from Kyle. I have to say the cities in Charleston, North Carolina, or South Carolina. Was it South Carolina? No, I think it was North Carolina. And the city in Oregon. They both have that really, and there was one more, I think, that they all had this energy, this sort of vibe, kind of hard to put into words, but really attracted me, really liked what I saw. Yeah, honestly, kind of makes me want to move. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.